Hey everyone, it's June 29th, and that means that if today's your birthday, you share with serial killer Francis Donald Nemechek, who murdered 4 women and 1 young boy in Kansas between 1974 and 1976. And that is him right up there. Born in 1950, Nemechek's father was a World War II veteran who returned to the U.S. to farm wheat. He had what seemed to be a relatively normal childhood, playing football in high school and avoiding any major trouble. While he got poor grades and was a prankster in school, he was a gifted mechanic, fixing tractors that puzzled even experienced farmhands. After high school, he attended a technical academy where he excelled and was hired as a traveling mechanic, going from town to town across the Midwest fixing fouled-up farm equipment. Nemechek eventually became a trucker and married a woman while in his early 20s with whom he had a son. The marriage didn't last, however, and the pair had an acrimonious divorce in 1974. Later that year, he first ran into trouble with the law, being arrested for disorderly conduct, which was the least of his transgressions. That December, he got into a fight with his ex-wife about visitation for his son. After the fight, Nemechek went for a drive and shot out the tires of a car he saw driving that night with 2 young women and a child in it. He approached the car, but sensing danger, the driver and passenger rolled up their windows and refused to speak with him. Nemechek walked back to his truck, grabbed a shotgun, and returned, forcing the women to grab the boy, who was just shy of 3 years old, and head back to his truck with him. He later said that he intended to offer help, but one of the women cursed at him, and because she reminded him of his wife, he decided to abduct the trio. He drove them to an abandoned farmhouse, where Nemechek had done some work for the landowner and sexually assaulted both women, then shot them at point-blank range with a shotgun. After realizing what he had done, he vomited and fled the scene, with the toddler left to fend for himself in a snowy Kansas winter. The child froze to death that night. Their bodies were found about a month later in January of 1975. Investigation of the scene led nowhere, but Nemechek struck again a year later. He first played a game of cat and mouse with a pickup while on the highway, then pulled out a gun and fired at the vehicle. He was arrested and bailed out of jail, but the location was close to the scene of his murder, so he was now on their list of suspects. That summer, Nemechek saw a college student riding her bike and exposed himself to her. When she reacted negatively, he grabbed her and drove to an isolated area where he sexually assaulted her, referring to her with his wife's name throughout the attack before stabbing her to death. 6 weeks later, Nemechek abducted a teenager who worked at Cedar Bluff Reservoir, a public recreation area in rural Kansas. He sexually assaulted her, and the victim told him that her father would get him, at which point he stabbed her to death and mutilated her body with a hunting knife before throwing it off a cliff, leaving behind a bloody thumbprint that the FBI found at the scene. After being hauled in for questioning, he was put under heavy surveillance while the FBI built their case, and in August of 1976 he was arrested, at which time the authorities found a blood-stained carpet in his camper and photos he had taken of the bodies of his victims. He was convicted of 5 murders and sentenced to life in prison, where he has remained ever since, with his next chance of parole, which will likely be denied, coming in 2027. If this is your birthday, I hope you have a great day. Leave me a comment so I can wish you a happy birthday. If you know someone whose birthday it is today, send them this video so I can find out all about their birthday twin. And to Francis Donald Nemechek, I say, happy birthday, you bastard.